through town. Mary was narrow-hipped with barely a chest, but it was something else about her that caught men's attention, a sultry drag to her gait, as if she were waiting for someone to step into her path and make her change direction. Her mother was right. She looked hard at the men who walked into the last house, which sat at the edge of town, far enough from the stores and saloon, the hotel and the two churches that it resembled a child excluded from a schoolyard game. Men entered through that doorway, their shoulders bent low, as if they were expecting some unseen hand to yank them away from their sinful intention. She watched those same men when they came out again too, their mouths as soft as bruised pears, their awareness adjusting to their sudden exposure. She watched the boys she'd known at school too. They were nearly men now, a state of almost, which made what they had been and what they were becoming tantalizingly present at the very same time. The being of a thing was most powerful when it was seconds from extinction. A flower about to drop from its stem, a shot rabbit twitching its last. She studied the way these boys walked down the street, their inward turning toes lending their movements the same lumbering intensity of a baby just learning to walk.
Before there was the book, there was the actual photograph. So it's this photograph, right? For those who don't know, Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange, a photograph of Florence Owens Thompson, a migrant mother in California in 1936. It was taken. First of all, did that give you pause? And secondly, I'm really curious about that as inspiration, about the photograph as inspiration. Yeah. I wonder if you can talk about
Well, I'll talk about the inspiration first, and then I'll talk about the pause, which there was much of.
It's risky to ask a writer about pause.
Year of pause. I had seen the photograph a million times, as I think so many of us have, because it's so ubiquitous. Probably the first time I saw it was, I'm sure, in some history book. But the most recent time I'd seen it was about 4 years ago when I went to a museum exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and it was part of a exhibit of Western photography. And once again, I was sort of drawn to it, as we all are. There's something about it that's so compelling and magnetic. But this time what appealed to me was not simply the photograph, it was the piece of information next to the photograph on the curatorial label, which said that the woman in the photograph had not revealed who she was until she was sick and dying, and needed money for her health care. And I found that piece of information sort of startling in its implications, because I thought, what was her relationship to the photograph that she never said, that's me? Especially in this day and age where people claim, celebrity every time they walk out the door. It seems particularly, for someone to hide in that way seems particularly shocking. And I thought, well, what is it? Was she ashamed of this photograph? Was she embarrassed by it? Was she disenfranchised by it because she hadn't been paid for it? What were the complicated feelings that would lead to someone holding that information to herself for 50 years? So that just sort of started the wheel spinning in terms of what is the mystery of this photograph and what is the life behind that photograph. What I kind of discovered going along in the process was that the book was about reinterpretation, and that, which goes to the first part of your question, which is, did it give me pause to take on this photograph? And it did give me pause for a really long time. I would say there was a full 6 to 8 months where all I was doing was thinking about this, and a lot of times thinking, can I do this? Am I allowed to do this? Is this okay to do? And what I began to understand as I thought and thought and thought more about it, what I was doing was that I understood that there is no sort of absolute truth to anything. I mean, we know when treaties were struck and we know when wars were fought, but when you get into the kind of the grains of sand of history, it's very hard to say this is what happened, this is what someone felt. And so once I began to understand that that was really something that I was not only going to experience writing the book, but it was very much what I was going to write about, my pause ended.
I think I've noticed throughout your books this sort of the dynamics of family. I think it's one of the things that is most sort of consistent throughout your fiction.
Yeah. I think family fascinates me because it is sort of this mystery embedded in everyone's lives. The relationships that you have with the people in your family both form you, and they are what you strike out against. There are secrets in families that sort of end up being baggage that you carry with you, or generations carry with them. So they have almost all the elements of any great drama. You know, they have antagonists and protagonists, and they have secrets, and they have mysteries, and they have, you know, the other shoe drops, and the will is opened, and we find out that there was another family. You know, I mean, it really is sort of this endless pool. But I also think that it's kind of, in terms of people defining who they are in life, it's something that you're always either, you know, it's a push me pull you. You're either hewing to your family or you're pulling away from it. It's the thing that is like it's the standard that we're all in relationship to. So I think for me, somehow, you know, those issues of family, I mean, if any character has children, it ends up being central to their lives because I see it that way. I don't think that it's ancillary.